The iData Project presents Studying Galaxies with Numbers with Dr. Nic Bonne.
Hi everybody, my name's Dr. Nic Bonne and I'm a blind astronomer currently working in the UK. My area of research is galaxies. Galaxies are objects in space that are pretty big actually. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes and they're made up of stars and planets and gas and dust and the stuff that nobody can see called dark matter. So my work involves looking at large populations of these galaxies and bringing all of the information together and looking for trends. So I look for galaxies that are similar in size to each other or have similar colors because maybe they're making new stars or they've stopped making stars altogether. I also use this kind of information to find unusual objects. So some of the galaxies that we look at in space are blue in color and they have a spiral shape. So they look a little bit like pinwheels or whirlpools. Usually these galaxies are making lots and lots of new stars, so they look like they're blue. I'm looking at a population of these spiral galaxies that are red. And what this tells us is that these have stopped making stars for some reason, but they still have their spiral shape. So it's a really interesting area of study. Now, when I say I'm blind, there are obviously lots of different levels of blindness. So I actually have a little bit of usable vision. As long as my face is right up against a computer screen, I can still write code and I can still sort of see astronomical images, but it's pretty difficult for me. So when I do most of my research, I take other people's observations and I use numbers from those observations. So I use numbers for masses. I use numbers that tell me what kind of galaxy I'm looking at. I use numbers that tell me how red something is or how blue something is. And that makes astronomy a little bit easier for me. So I'm currently working at a university in a city called Portsmouth, which is on the south coast of the UK, and it's not the best place for actual astronomical observations. That's because it gets a lot of coastal weather. It actually gets a lot of secondhand storms from the US. So every time you guys get a cyclone or a hurricane or anything like that, it blows across the Atlantic Ocean and hits my side of the United Kingdom. As well as that, Portsmouth is actually one of the most densely populated cities in the UK. So there are around about 5,100 people per square kilometre in the city. And that's about 0.4 of a square mile. So if you can imagine having that many people around you, if all of those people want to have their house lights turned on, if they're all driving cars at night, if there's street lights to make sure everyone can walk around safely, that means there's a lot of light pollution. So it's actually really difficult to see the night sky. So I'm lucky that I can do my astronomy just using numbers. So some of my research probably sounds a little bit complicated, and it can get pretty tricky, but it's also relatively easy to simplify things. So when we study galaxies, what we're really seeing is the light coming from the stars or being radiated by hot dust or gas. All of this light travels in waves, or different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. And by looking at these waves, analysing them, seeing what part of the spectrum they fall on, we can actually learn a lot about the galaxies. So it may sound complicated, but we can simplify things to make it a little bit easier to understand.